All right, what else was I going to do? Oh, I want to talk about I want to talk about what I spoke about for at Day of Discovery. I spoke about it 3 times. I don't really know that I've spoken about it here, and that's this concept of the observer effect. There is in quantum physics the observer effect, and the way that this came about. I wish that I had. Let me see if I have it still. I might have the video here. Hang on. Let's call it the observer effect. Let me quickly guide you through this particular study that was done where these scientists were trying to understand light and how it went through. And they were shooting light beams, but they shot these light beams through 2 slits. It's called the double slit experiment. They were shooting photons through these 2 slits, and they were measuring how which slit it goes through by the wall that it hit on the back of it. And so when they were shooting these photons directly aimed at, something that's a distance from them, they were trying to see whether or not it was going to go through the right or the left. And again, they were measuring by what happened on the wall behind it. And when they did this, they didn't just see 2 marks or 2 areas, it was several. And so this just didn't seem possible. Either it seemed like there would be a 50% chance it was going to go through 1 slit and then over there and go through the other slit and it would end over there. But they were just all across the wall, which isn't, it was beyond their understanding. And so what they did was they put these sensor cameras next to the slits or where the photons of light would go through, because this is happening too fast for the eye to observe it. But these cameras would allow you to slow it down and watch so you could see, well, how could this be? These are single photons. Were they splitting in half? And it just they were just very, very confused because it didn't make sense. And so then when they studied this from this perspective, all of the light photons either went through one hole or the other, like 50% of the time. And then on the wall behind it, there were just 2. Now, this is what they expected the whole time. They didn't change anything. The only thing they did was start looking. So they turned the cameras off and they did it again because it was just an anomaly. What the hell is happening? What the hell is going on? And 100% of the time, when the cameras were off, the results they got back were results that they could not explain. The light hit all over the wall. 100% of the time, when they turned the cameras on to observe what's happening, the photons acted in a way that was expected of them based off of the understanding of the scientists that were doing the study. Or really logic. I mean, that's what I would expect. I'm certain that's what you would expect, because it only makes sense that this specific thing would happen. And so, without going too far into grasping or understanding this or trying to understand it, the simple rule that I took out of that is that when you focus on something, things, energy, matter, it starts it starts to react in a way that you would expect because you're focusing on it. Now, as I mentioned in one of my talks, I don't remember which one it was. If I really go down into deep into how I believe that it is unfathomable for us, whatever the science is, that would allow these photons to be simultaneously happening in multiple places at multiple times. And because it was unfathomable for us to understand, this is the reason that the molecules behaved differently when we put our observation to affect in that way. I think that when we grow higher to be able to understand these things, that we might get a different result while observing. But that's neither here nor there. That doesn't change what you and I can do on our level. When we observe things and we focus on things, the energy of the observation itself is more powerful sometimes than the energy of what's happening around it. I remember when I was a child, things were a little different when I was a kid from the standpoint of parenting. My parenting was a little more harsh. It would almost be considered abuse in 2025. And because I didn't want that level of abuse, when I observed my mother observing me, now you got two energies happening. One, I'm observing her. Two, she's observing me. My behavior was completely different than when I didn't know or didn't think that she was observing me. And if I was about to do something that I shouldn't have been doing, first of all, there's an energy exchange happening. My mother was very observant. So usually my mother would be looking at me. She'd catch that. I'd catch the look. She would know that I was up to something. She would probably be able to look at me until I was thinking about doing it. I'd catch the corner of her eye and I would see that my mother was observing me, and I would sit my ass down. If I was about to go off and be wary or be out of control, the moment that I was being observed, I sat back down. My behavior was modified simply by the observation. Action wasn't necessary because I understood that the observation was going to lead to some action, and everything stopped at the energy field of observation. That's one example. Another example would be people who get these diagnoses, these death diagnoses. And the doctor, the all-knowing one, says, yeah, they have about 6 months to live. And they internalize this because they've been given a diagnosis of cancer, leukemia, whatever the disease is. They've been given that diagnosis. And the energy now is out there. The energy of expectation is there. They may have had all of the things that would have given them that diagnosis a year ago, 2 years ago. They may have been walking around with it for all of that time. But now that there is an expectation, now that the energy has been given to them and they take it in and accept it, they are now the observer of this information. They were not the observer before, but they're now the observer. And they take on the information as fact, and usually they are gone in 6 months or 4 months or whatever the time frame is that the doctor gives. Was the doctor right? Or did we use the observer effect? And the result of that is that we succumb to whatever it is that we may have been dealing with for a long time. We succumb to it because we have now been given information that we've taken in and we've become the observer of. Now we're the observer of our own reality and we observe everything. What was that feeling? What was that smell? What was that thing that hit me over here in my stomach, in my gut? What's my blood doing? We're observing. We're observing and we are expecting. And when we do that, the body complies because the body is giving you what you expect. The body is giving you what you're actually looking for. Somebody that is prone to having a heart attack and now they know it. Everything in the chest, they now feel it because they've become the observer of the heart. And if you become the observer of something in your own body, without the ability to rise above that and say, oh, now that I am the observer of this, let me now master it. Now, it's not mastering me. Let me master it. Going back to the example of my mother, when she observed me, if she had decided that there's nothing that she could do about this, and I was now about to really get myself into some trouble, her reaction would just be to sit back and let it happen. But that was never her reaction. Her reaction was to focus in on me so hard that I know that she's focusing in on me so I could look back at her. And now she's in total control because we've made eye contact. So she's now controlling the situation. She's mastering my actions with eye contact. That's energy. Now, I do realize that things have changed. So this is not me giving my opinion, condemnation, or making a judgment on parenting today. That's not what this is. This is just action and consequences, truth from the vantage point of me. What happens today in 2025 is that the parent realizes that the child is about to do something wary, and they no longer become the observer with power. They become the observer with no power, and then they spring into action to try to ward it off because they don't have control. Parents don't have the level of control over their children in 2025 as parents did when I was 5. They don't have that level of control for the most part. So they become subject to their children versus mastering the movements of their children. I'm only using the child analogy to go back to the analogy of the human being in the body and ourselves being the observer of our own bodies. When we become the observer of our own bodies, our own health, our own minds, our own emotions, our own organs, if we become the observer from the standpoint of being the master of them, then we have the potential to turn things around when they go wayward in them. But when we become the observer of ourselves from the standpoint of being subjugated to ourselves, then we have no power. And we then turn over all of our power to science and medicine and doctors and surgeons and all of the things. We're waiting on blood tests so they can tell us what is going to happen to us versus going to take a blood test so they can validate the work that you've done on you. The concept is so extremely different, but when it happens, when it's made, there are universal effects. So in my Day of Discovery talk, at the end portion of what they played on Solex, and if you haven't watched it, in order to give context to what I'm saying, you might want to just go check it out. At the end of that talk, I was saying that when you wand your body, for those of you who have terahertz wands, and you find an area of your body that needs support, either because you feel a physical pain, you know of an area that is out of balance, you see something on the scan, and you use terahertz energy, which is amazing, but you use it with the expectation of healing, you've become the observer from the standpoint of taking control and mastering. When you lay on your mats, for those of you who have PEMF mats, whether that be the AO mat or other brands, or your stone mats, whether it be the AO or other brands, For those of you who have the foot detox or who have a PMF device, like I have in my office where you put your feet on, the rain, we're scanning and optimizing. And you do that with a particular focus. The focus of this is going to get me better. This is designed to heal my heart, my brain, my intestines, my bladder. Whatever it is that you are trying, or give me overall health. If you're not experiencing any health conditions, keep me healthy. It's that thought, that focus that makes you the observer of your own reality, and that fuels the modality that you're using so that you become more powerful than the modality. The modality is helping you to reconstruct the body and not the other way around. You're using that. For those of you who are religious, what's more powerful? God or rain? Rain is a modality that's used to bring water down. And when the water comes down, there is an effect because it's nature. It's nature. You got the rain coming from the sky. You have the sunlight that's coming through it, and it creates energy inside of the water, and it also helps to purify it. But also, it hits soil, and there is a genetic makeup to the soil, and there are things happening underneath the soil. And if you've planted things, there's a whole system that's happening. But if you're religious, this isn't happening haphazardly. The soil isn't more powerful than the rain. The rain isn't more powerful than the seed. The seed isn't more powerful than the sun. The cloud isn't more powerful than the rain that it produces. But none of those things, for those of you who are religious, is more powerful than God. So God utilizes all of these things based off of an expectation of what's going to happen. And they always do, 100% of the time. Because the makeup of the planet is this design. So, I take up 30 minutes and I'm sorry. I did not intend on doing this. I know that I always say that, and so it seems like I'm lying, but I promise you I'm not lying. So I'm going to end that with saying the observer effect is so much deeper than what we've been given it credit for. There's so many different ways to look at this observer effect. And you can become the observer of your own reality. And all of these modalities that you use to deal with yourself, to deal with your clients, to deal with your family, all of these things are modalities, but they are not nearly as powerful as the energy that you bring to them. You bring the energy that makes them work, and then they will do what you want them to do. And that's more powerful than any protocol that I'm going to give you. That's more powerful than any Cephi playlist that anybody can give you. The Cephi playlist will then come out. It will be extracted from your own energy, utilizing the tools that you have. And then you don't have to buy every new thing that comes out. Just use what you have efficiently. Use what you have from that energy source. The same clouds, the same water, the same earth has been here for, depending on who you talk to, millions, billions, and trillions of years. And they all still work. They have been here for several different types of civilizations. And they help to build all of them. And so when you all utilize everything that you have from the perspective of you being the master of it, everything changes. Everything. All right. Half our class is over, so I'm sorry. Let's get into our class now. If you have any questions, go ahead or comments, go ahead and click on observations and raise your hand, and I'll bring you in to the classroom. Or you can type in your comment and just type QQ, and it'll help me to see it more.